The most sacred bond a man can have is with his sons. For Cody Brown, that bond became a battlefield, and it was a war he was destined to lose. What follows is not merely a family dispute, but a deep examination of the dismantling of a father's legacy. A trial in the court of fatherhood where the charges are severe, the evidence is heartbreaking, and the verdict is undeniable. This is the story of a patriarch who, in a desperate bid for control, waged war on his own blood and lost everything that mattered. Before we dive in, if you believe fatherhood is a sacred trust, a duty that must be earned every single day, hit that like button now. If you're ready to see the unfiltered truth of the Brown family's collapse, make sure you are subscribed to Sister Wives Crew. The court of fatherhood is now in session. The matter at hand is the conflict between Cody Brown and his sons, Gabriel and Garrison Brown. The central charge is a catastrophic betrayal of the father-son covenant, a bond built on guidance, protection, unconditional love, and the sacred duty of a father to raise sons into men, not minions. The prosecution, driven by the emotional testimony of his own sons, argues that Cody didn't just bend this covenant. He shattered it, leaving a wake of emotional devastation. Gabriel Brown's testimony paints a picture of heartbreak. On his birthday, his father forgot to acknowledge him, instead turning a call into an interrogation about potential exposure to COVID. The silence that followed Gabe's reminder, "Dad, it's my birthday," was deafening. Cody offered no apology. In that moment, Gabriel realized he was no longer a priority. He was a variable in an equation of control, an obstacle to his father's life with Robin. This was not a simple oversight. It was a symptom of a deeper emotional detachment. Cody was physically and emotionally absent, haunting his sons only with rules and anger. Garrison Brown's experience was a slow-burning frustration. As a National Guard member saving for a house and working diligently, he represented responsibility and maturity. Cody, however, saw his diligence as a threat because it defied his strict COVID protocols. The infamous driveway confrontation revealed Cody not as a father, but as a drill sergeant, punishing his sons for living independently. The rules were not about health, they were a loyalty test, one designed to fail Gabe and Garrison. Social lives, relationships, even basic independence became grounds for punishment. Cody's true priority was his freedom to live comfortably with Robin, and his older sons were in the way. Cody's treatment of Janelle, their mother, compounded the betrayal. A father is meant to model respect toward a mother, yet Cody belittled her, accused her of poisoning the children, and placed the blame for the family's fracture on her. Gabriel and Garrison were forced into an impossible position: respect their mother or obey their father. Their choice was clear. They stood by Janelle, not out of disrespect for Cody, but out of loyalty to the one who had been their constant source of love and support. Cody's defense was hollow. He claimed the sons disrespected him. His argument relied on patriarchal entitlement and an inability to empathize. In his mind, obedience equaled respect, and any deviation was rebellion. But the family had grown complex with multiple households and independent adult sons. His one-size-fits-all edict was not protection. It was a power play. Cody's ego framed their independence as a personal affront, and he deflected blame onto them, creating a narrative where he was the victim. Underlying this defense was an all-consuming loyalty to Robin. Any criticism of Cody's rules was framed as a criticism of her. Cody's anger toward his sons was tied to protecting his chosen, compliant family, while alienating the older children. Insider reports suggest he even conditioned financial support for his sons on formal apologies, a coercive tactic that extended his control beyond on-camera disputes. The pandemic exposed the fractures in the family. Prior to COVID, Cody could maintain the illusion of a cohesive family. The lockdown forced choices, revealing that he prioritized Robin's household over Janelle's. Cody's paternal identity relied on authority, but as his sons matured, their independence threatened his fragile ego. Gabriel and Garrison were no longer subjects. They were men with their own lives. Cody's claim of disrespect was the cry of a king whose subjects no longer bowed. Hypocrisy further undermined Cody's authority. While demanding extreme sacrifices from his sons, he and Robin allowed exceptions for themselves, like a nanny entering their home. The rules were a weapon, not protection. Cody demanded obedience from Gabe and Garrison, while modeling a completely different standard for his younger children. The ultimate betrayal was clear. Cody chose the younger, compliant children over his biological sons. His favoritism toward Dayton and Solomon demonstrated that love was conditional on submission. Every tender moment with Robin's children was a broadcasted message to his older sons, a prize they could never earn. He refused to evolve as a father, seeing his sons' growth into men as rebellion rather than maturity. In contrast, Janelle's parenting produced resilient, independent sons. Gabriel and Garrison chose their mother not because they were coerced, but because she earned their respect through years of unwavering love. Cody attempted to gaslight them, using denial, attack, and role reversal to cast himself as the victim. Yet they saw the truth. The sacred promise of fatherhood, to guide, protect, and nurture, was broken. Cody abdicated that role in favor of comfort and control, exchanging his sons for obedient subjects. The verdict is unequivocal. Cody Brown is guilty of abandonment, emotional manipulation, and prioritizing his ego over his children's well-being. He lost the war for his son's loyalty, and in doing so, forfeited his legacy. A father's honor is carried in the hearts of his children, and Cody has relinquished that honor. He will not be a trusted mentor, a celebrated patriarch, or a grandfather at the center of family life. He is left with a hollow kingdom, a monument to his own Pyrrhic victory. Janelle, by contrast, emerges victorious, not through spite, but through strength, principle, and love. Her bond with her sons is unbreakable, built on respect, trust, and unconditional support. Her sons now protect, honor, and cherish her. Cody feared losing control, and he engineered it himself. He accused Janelle of poisoning his sons, but in reality, he was the poison. He abandoned his throne and handed her the crown. Cody's defeat is absolute. He lost his family, his legacy, and the war against his own sons. The tragic irony is that his sons never sought a fight. They only wanted a father. True fatherhood is not earned through authority and rigid rules. It is earned through love, sacrifice, and humility. The question now falls to you. Who is truly responsible for the Brown family's collapse? If you stand with the Brown boys and believe in strength through loyalty and love, hit that like button and subscribe to Sister Wives Crew. The fallout from this judgment is far from over, and we will continue to analyze every piece of it. Thank you for watching. The most sacred bond a man can have is with his sons. For Cody Brown, that bond became a battlefield, and it was a war he was destined to lose. What you are about to witness is not just a family squabble. It is a deep dive into the dismantling of a father's legacy. This is a trial in the court of fatherhood, where the charges are severe, the evidence is heartbreaking, and the verdict is absolute. Before we start, if you believe fatherhood is a sacred trust that must be earned and re-earned every day, hit that like button. And if you're ready to see the unvarnished truth of the Brown family's collapse, make sure you're subscribed to Sister Wives Crew. The matter before us is the conflict between Cody Brown and his sons, Gabriel and Garrison. The central charge is a catastrophic betrayal of the father-son covenant, a bond built on guidance, protection, unconditional love, and the sacred duty of a father to raise his sons into men, not minions. The prosecution, led by the raw and emotional testimonies of his own sons, will argue that Cody didn't just bend this covenant, he shattered it, leaving behind emotional devastation that may never heal. Gabriel Brown's testimony paints a portrait of heartbreak. On his birthday, instead of receiving a call filled with warmth and celebration, he received a conversation dominated by interrogation over COVID protocols. When Gabe reminded his father, "Dad, it's my birthday," the silence that followed was deafening. Cody didn't apologize. In that moment, Gabriel realized he was no longer a priority. He was a variable in an equation of control, an obstacle to his father's comfort and life with Robin. This was not a simple oversight. It revealed a profound emotional detachment from the children he claimed to love. Garrison Brown's story was one of slow-burning frustration. As a young man in the National Guard, saving for a house and working responsibly, he represented maturity and responsibility. Instead of pride, Cody met his ambition with suspicion and condemnation. Garrison's diligence threatened Cody's strict rules. The conflict reached its peak in the infamous driveway confrontation, a moment that showed Cody not as a father guiding his sons, but as a drill sergeant punishing insubordination. Their real crime was independence. their refusal to place Cody's comfort and new life above their own. The rules Cody imposed were extreme. Gabe and Garrison were told to sever social connections, give up girlfriends, and essentially put their lives on hold. This wasn't about safety, it was a test of loyalty, one they were destined to fail. The older sons became obstacles in Cody's pursuit of a controlled, compliant household with Robin. The pandemic provided the perfect cover to isolate them while justifying his absence from their lives. Cody's behavior toward Janelle, their mother, added another layer to the betrayal. A father is supposed to model respect for the mother of his children. Instead, Cody belittled her, blamed her for their son's supposed disobedience, and accused her of turning the children against him. Gabriel and Garrison faced an impossible choice: obey their father or honor their mother. Their decision was clear. They stood by Janelle, not out of rebellion, but out of loyalty to the one who had consistently loved and supported them. Cody Brown's defense was predictable. His sons disrespected him. For Cody, that was the ultimate crime. In his mind, obedience equaled respect, and any challenge to his authority was rebellion. But the reality was far more complex. The Brown family no longer operated under a single household. The older sons were adults with responsibilities, relationships, and lives outside Cody's control. His rigid one-size-fits-all rules were not about protection, they were about power. Cody's insistence on absolute obedience exposed a fragile ego. Gabriel questioning the logic of the rules wasn't defiance, it was curiosity. Garrison working, saving and planning for his future wasn't rebellion, it was adulthood. Cody didn't want sons who could think independently. He wanted followers. When they didn't comply, he didn't feel disappointment. He felt betrayal. His claims of disrespect were the cries of a king whose subjects had stopped bowing. Underlying this defense was his devotion to Robin. Any criticism of his rules was seen as an attack on her. Cody's anger toward his sons wasn't just about authority, it was about protecting a household he could control. Insider reports suggest he even tied financial support for his adult sons to formal apologies, not just to him, but to Robin. If true, this was a coercive measure, extending control beyond on-camera arguments into real-life consequences for their futures. The pandemic accelerated the fracture. Before COVID, Cody maintained the illusion of a cohesive family. But lockdowns forced him to choose, exposing the reality. His loyalty lay with Robin's household. His older sons, who were independent and responsible, became obstacles to his comfort. The natural progression of children growing into adulthood threatened his authority. Gabriel and Garrison weren't just becoming men, they were becoming rivals in his eyes. Hypocrisy further eroded Cody's credibility. While demanding extreme sacrifices from his older sons, he allowed exceptions for himself and Robin. A nanny could come and go in their home, yet the sons were forbidden basic social interaction. Rules were selectively enforced, proving the measures weren't about safety, they were about control. Cody demanded total submission while exempting himself and the household he favored. The ultimate betrayal lay in preference. Cody chose the younger, compliant children over his biological sons. Dayton and Solomon, who followed the rules and required little challenge, were rewarded with affection, presence, and guidance. Every tender moment with Robin's children was a silent message to the older sons. Love is a prize earned through obedience. Gabe and Garrison were left with neglect, a stark contrast that exposed the transactional nature of Cody's parenting. Janelle, by contrast, had nurtured sons who could think, act, and choose for themselves. They didn't crumble under Cody's pressure. They rallied around their mother. Garrison even used his own earnings to buy a home, creating stability independent of his father. Where Cody demanded fear and compliance, Janelle inspired respect, loyalty, and love. Her household became a fortress her sons would protect, a testament to her success as a parent. Cody's refusal to evolve as a father, his obsession with control, and his selective favoritism culminated in a profound abdication. He chose comfort, obedience, and a controlled environment over the natural growth and independence of his older sons. He abandoned the sacred promise of fatherhood, prioritizing his ego and his favored household over love, guidance, and presence for the sons who bore his blood. The most devastating element of Cody Brown's failure was psychological. His plea was rooted in what we can call patriarchal fragility. He built his identity as the undisputed king of his family, the omnipotent patriarch. In the early days, when the children were young and dependent, this worked. But as Gabriel and Garrison matured, they developed their own thoughts, opinions, and lives. What should have been a natural, healthy progression of fatherhood, raising independent men, was seen by Cody as rebellion. Their independence didn't threaten the family, it threatened his dominance. Gabriel's questions about the rules weren't curiosity, they were framed as insubordination. Garrison's work ethic and adult responsibilities weren't maturity, they were defiance. Cody wasn't willing to evolve as a father to adult sons. Instead, he retreated to a bubble where he could remain the undisputed authority with Robin and the younger, more compliant children. Love, guidance, and mentorship were replaced by a rigid hierarchy where obedience dictated affection. The hypocrisy of Cody's actions was glaring. While he demanded isolation and compliance from his older sons, he allowed exceptions for himself and Robin. A nanny could freely enter their home, yet the sons were forbidden basic social interactions or life milestones. These double standards revealed the true motive. It was never about family safety. It was about maintaining control and convenience. Cody demanded sacrifices that he himself wasn't willing to make. He was not a father leading by example. He was a ruler issuing decrees. The ultimate betrayal was the shift in his affection and allegiance. Cody's attention and tenderness were lavished on Robin's children, particularly Dayton and Solomon, who were compliant, obedient, and easily managed. Meanwhile, Gabriel and Garrison, who lived with independence and responsibility, were left neglected. The message was clear: love is conditional on submission. Cody wasn't raising sons, he was raising followers. When his older sons outgrew that role and became men with their own lives, he treated them as enemies, not family. Even the framing of this betrayal was manipulative. Cody attempted to rewrite reality, positioning himself as the victim and casting his sons as aggressors. He claimed they had rejected him, but in truth, he created the circumstances that drove the wedge between them. The tactic of denying his role, attacking their character, and reversing victim and offender is a classic example of Darvo. He abandoned his sons, yet tried to make them feel guilty for that very abandonment. But Gabriel and Garrison didn't break. They recognized the truth and stood strong, inspired by their mother's unwavering support. In the end, the most profound failure of Cody Brown was his refusal to honor the sacred promise of fatherhood. He chose obedience over love, comfort over responsibility, and control over connection. He abandoned the sons who bore his blood in favor of a household that could never challenge high. After examining all the evidence and hearing both sides, the court of fatherhood is ready to deliver its verdict. In the matter of the father-son covenant, Gabriel and Garrison Brown stand victorious. Cody Brown is judged guilty of catastrophic failure as a father, guilty of abandonment, emotional manipulation, prioritizing his ego over his children, and betraying the most sacred trust a man can hold. The consequences of these actions are not handed down by a judge, but by life itself. Cody faces a sentence of profound loss. He has forfeited the love, respect, and loyalty of his older sons. His legacy, measured not in possessions or appearances, but in the hearts of his children, has been destroyed. Moments he will never share. Their weddings, the birth of grandchildren, quiet milestones, and the guidance that makes a life meaningful are now beyond reach. He fought a war for control and ended up controlling nothing of value. His kingdom is hollow, a monument to his own Pyrrhic victory. Meanwhile, Janelle emerges triumphant, not through vengeance, but through quiet strength and unwavering principle. Her sons rallied around her, protected her, and built a life independent of their father's whims. Garrison purchased his own home, establishing stability and a foundation for the future. Gabriel and Garrison's respect and devotion were earned, not coerced. They stand as living proof of Janelle's parenting philosophy. Raise strong, independent, compassionate men, trust them to make their own choices, and offer guidance without imposing tyranny. Cody's greatest fear came true. He lost control over his family, but the irony is that it was his own actions that guaranteed this outcome. He accused Janelle of poisoning the children against him, but he himself was the poison. By abandoning His sons and prioritizing Robin, he handed Janelle a crown. She became the keeper of the flame for her branch of the Brown family. Her sons will honor her, protect her, and cherish her for life, a legacy of love and loyalty that Cody will never reclaim. In the end, Cody Brown's defeat is total. He lost his family, his honor, and his legacy. The war against his own sons was a conflict he was uniquely determined to fight, and uniquely determined to lose. The central question remains: what is the true meaning of fatherhood? Is it demanding respect through authority and rigid rules, as Cody believed? Or is it earning respect through love, sacrifice, and the humility to admit when you are wrong? Gabriel and Garrison didn't seek a war. They only sought a father. Cody chose control. They chose life. The verdict is clear. Love, loyalty, and respect cannot be demanded. They must be earned. And in that measure, the sons of Janelle Brown and the triumph of her parenting stand as the undeniable winners.